Hey guys, it's time for chapter 17 of Rubyfruit Jungle. I know, it's been a very long time. I apologize. I tried to do this a few days ago, and something's wrong with my computer, and it didn't really work. And I don't know if it's going to work today either. And I'm just going to try. I don't know. I think my internet's been a little funky from the hurricane that we had yesterday, too. So I'm going to try my best. Hopefully, you guys will hear this. So, this is chapter 17. New York City didn't greet me with open arms on my return, but that didn't matter. I was determined to deal with all eventualities, even indifference. The remainder of the summer droned on. Fall came as a relief because it would be my senior year, and in our senior year, we were expected to produce a short film, an accumulation of all our years of study at NYU. Professor Walgren, head of the department and dedicated misogynist, called me in his office for the routine consideration of a project. Molly, what are you going to do for your senior project? I thought I'd do a 20-minute documentary of one woman's life. He seemed unimpressed. Porno violence was in this year, and all the men were busy shooting bizarre fuck scenes with cuts of pigs beating up people at the Chicago convention, spliced between the sexual encounters. My project was not in that vein. You might have trouble getting the camera out for weekends. By the way, who will be in your crew? No one. No one will consent to be my crew. Professor Walgren coughed behind his fashionable wire-rimmed glasses and said, with a slight hint of malice, "Oh, I see. They won't take orders from a woman, eh?" "I don't know. I hadn't noticed they were too good at taking orders from each other." "Well, good luck on your film. I'll be eager to see what you crank out." "Sure you will, you fake hippie middle-aged washout." The cameras were booked for the next decade, but that always happened whenever I asked to use one out of the studio. So that afternoon, I casually dumped the Araflex into a tubby wicker tote bag with Jamaica sewn across its side in multicolored thread and waltzed out. I had also ripped off as much film as I could carry in the bag and the special inside pockets I had sewn in my pea coat. I went home and asked my neighbor to water my plants for the next week, gave her the extra key, and went up to Port Authority, home of the nation's tea room queens, where I caught a bus to Fort Lauderdale. 34 hours and 5 grilling conversations later, I was behind the Howard Johnsons on Route 1. The sun was so bright after New York that everything seemed harsh to me and my eyes hurt. The equipment was too heavy for me to carry the 4 miles home, so I hired a taxi. 10 minutes later, we were zipping up Flagler Drive by the Florida East Coast Railway, next to the house. The pink had faded from flaming ugly to mild grotesque. The queen palm in the front lawn had grown at least 15 feet, and all the shrubs around the house were busy with flowers and chameleons. I hadn't been home in 6 years. I wrote Carrie once or twice to tell her I was still alive, but that was about it. I didn't tell her I was coming home to see her. I knocked on the door and heard a slow shuffle behind the half-open jalousies. The jalousies were turning open, and a scratchy voice said, "Who is it?" "It's me, Mom. It's Molly." "Molly!" The door flew open and I saw Carrie. She looked like a yellow prune, and her hair was stark white. Her hands shook as she reached out to bring me closer and give me a hug. She started to cry, and she couldn't talk very well. Her tongue seemed heavy in her mouth. She swayed from side to side as she tried to walk back into the living room. I put my hand under her elbow and guided her to her old rocker with the swan's heads for armrest. She sat down and looked at me. "I guess you're surprised to see your old mother after all these years. My sickness caught up with me. I'm drying up like grass in the drought." "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know anything about it." "No, and I didn't want you to know nothing about it neither. After you left, I decided to keep things to myself. You didn't care, anyway. I told Florence never to write and tell you about my condition. I can hardly write anymore because it's got my fingers, too. What are you doing here? You're not living under this roof and laying back there in that bedroom with naked women. I hope you know that." "I know that. I came back to ask you to help me with my senior project." "Not if it costs money, I ain't." "It doesn't cost anything." "And what are you doing in school? You should have graduated in 1967. You're 2 years behind time. What, those Yankee kids too smart for you?" "No, I had to work full-time most of the last 3 years, and it slowed me down at school." "Ha, good. I'm glad to hear those snotty-nosed Jew brats up there ain't smarter than you." Well, will you help me with the project? No, I don't know what it is yet. What do I have to do? All you have to do is sit in that rocker and talk to me while I film you. Film me? Sure. You mean I'm gonna be in a movie? Right. But I got no clothes, no makeup. You gotta be decked out for something like that. I'm too old to be in a movie. Just sit in your chair and wear your house dress with the black poodles on it. That's all you have to do. What am I going to say? You write some play for me to make a fool out of myself in? You used to write things like that when you was little. I ain't doing no play. You put that in your pipe and smoke it. No play, Mom. All I want you to do is to talk to me while I film you, like we're doing now. Well, now, I think I can do that. Good, then you'll do it? No, not until I know what you're going to do with it. It's my senior project. I need it to graduate. I'll show it to my professors. Oh, no, I ain't talking for no professors so they can laugh at my English. Nothing doing. No one will laugh unless you say something funny. Come on, please. It's not such a big thing to sit there and talk. If you promise not to make a fool out of me, then I'll do it. And you have to buy your food while you're here because I ain't got the money to feed you. That's okay. I brought along enough money for a week. All right then, go put your stuff in the back room, but mind, no women are coming to this house while you're in it. Not even the Avon lady. You hear me? I hear you. Hey, where's old Florence? Florence died a year ago last May. High blood pressure is what did it. Doctor gave it a fancy name, but it was high blood pressure just the same. Her being so nervous, all the time worrying about other people's business, poking her nose where it don't belong. That kind of carrying on will kill you. But she was a good sister, and I miss her. The mouse dead. It seemed impossible. Even dead, she must be babbling in her grave. Carrie continued. We buried her in the same lot as Carl. You remember, over there by the drive-in theater? Oh, it was a lovely ceremony. Only thing that spoiled it was the advertisement for the movie. Some sex film, something like Hot Flesh Pots. Well, it was a good thing Florence was dead, because if she had seen that, it would have killed her. She must have been turning over in her casket. You should have seen the casket. Shiny black, next to the most expensive kind. You know how she hated suggestive things. They could have taken that nasty sign down when they saw her shiny casket coming down the road. This time I rode in a black Cadillac. Wasn't as nice as the car we rode in for Carl's funeral. What kind of car was that? A Continental. Let me tell you that Cadillac got nothing on those Continentals. If I'm ever a rich woman, I'm getting a Continental. Who makes them? Ford. Ford. Your father told me never to buy a Ford motor car. Said they were made out of cardboard and he knew what he was talking about. But I still think a Continental has a smooth ride. Daddy probably never rode in one, so you use your own judgment when you make your millions. Carrie cackled and flicked her wrist at me. Go on, put that junk back in your room before I trip over it and break my neck. I picked up the equipment and carried it down the terrazzo halls to the back room that used to be mine. Carrie had taken all my ribbons and trophies off the walls and put up a picture facing the double bed. It was Christ, kneeling at Gethsemane with a ray of heavenly light coming out of the night to hit him full in the bearded face. Over the head of the brown-painted iron bedstead she had an enormous day-glow cross. On the sagging dresser stood a ceramic chipmunk wearing a University of Florida freshman beanie. I deposited the stuff in the closet and went into the front room. Carrie was pushing herself in the rocker with one of her feet and getting very animated. You want a cup of tea, honey? How about a Coke? I always keep Coke in the refrigerator. Leroy's little boys like it so much. You should see them. Ep the second is 5.5 years old. Leroy got the girl pregnant. That's why he's so old, if you know what I mean. Leroy married her in the nick of time, but they seem happy. Accidents will happen. Look at you. Maybe they'll come by sometime this week and you can see them. I don't get out much more, any other than what they take me. Lost the car. Had to sell it when the city put main sewage pipes in. Didn't have money, so I sold the car to pay for the price of having the yard dug up so I could connect. Damn crooks. City, state, president, they're all damn crooks. Terrible to be without a car, but I'm too old to drive, I guess. My illness, you know. Can't get my hands and feet to do the right together. Leroy said it was the best thing that I sold the old Plymouth. Said he was afraid I'd get myself killed on the highway. So now I go out in the backyard. But I miss driving up by the beach. Leroy takes me up with the kids now and then. Kids make too much noise. I don't remember you making all that noise. You were a quiet child. Did you tell me how long you're going to be here? Around a week, if it's okay. That's fine, so long as you buy your own food. Meat prices are fierce these days. I only eat meat once or twice a week now. Not like when we lived in Shiloh and got fresh meat whenever we wanted it, for the killing. I don't see how people with big families live. How are you living? You don't look like you can work. Oh, yes, I can. I certainly can. I take an ironing and I sit down so it doesn't tax me so much. I ain't on handouts. I get $45 from Social Security, and since I'm over 65, I get Medicare, but that's no handout. I earned that. I paid years of taxes, so those things belong to me. When I get too old or too sick to work, I'm walking over to the ocean to let the fishes eat me. You don't have to worry about taking care of me, girl. I'm not worried. See, you don't care. You don't even write me when you're away. I could die down here and you wouldn't even know it. You don't care. Mom, when I left, I understood that you didn't want any more to do with me. Besides, I did write once in a while. Angry words, angry words. You should know a mother don't mean angry words to her child. You said I wasn't your child and you were glad of it. Oh, no, I didn't. I never said such a thing. Mom, you did. Don't go telling me what I did. You misunderstood me. You're a little hothead. You flew out of here before I could talk to you. I never said no such thing, and don't you try to tell me I did. You're my baby. Why, in 1944, when I was worrying over whether to adopt you, Pastor Needle, you remember, our old pastor up north, he told me you were born to be my baby, and that all children come into this world the same way, and I wasn't to worry about you being a bastard. No, sir, all children are the same in the eyes of the Lord. I don't know where you get such ideas in your head. You know I'd never say a thing like that. Why, I love you. You're all I got left in this world. Yeah, okay, Mom. I went out in the kitchen and got a soda and some big hard pretzels out of the bread box. Carrie wanted some, but she had to soak them in her coffee because her teeth were going bad. We sat in the living room with the TV turned on full blast and talked during commercials in the Lawrence Welk show. She told me how she thought Lawrence Welk was a wonderful man and his show was wholesome. She wanted to dance to all that beautiful music, but she'd fall over because her inside ear was out of whack. I filmed Carrie through the week. Once over her initial fright, she relaxed in her rocker and talked to Blue Streak. Whenever she'd get excited about anything, she'd start pushing the rocker harder and harder until she'd be whizzing away, running her mouth as fast as the chair. Then when she finished her story, she'd let the rocker coast back to idle, and she'd answer some questions with a yes or no. She thoroughly enjoyed the attention, and she was thrilled that I could work a camera. It didn't take her long to figure things out, because when I took a shot of her revving up her rocker, she snapped, "What are you doing taking pictures of my feet? People want to see my face, not my feet." When I wasn't filming, I did household chores for her, cut the grass, and ran errands since she couldn't walk anywhere. And Leroy did come with his wife and kids. He and Mom talked about little things while the kids ran through the house, and Leroy's wife, Joyce, eyed me uncomfortably. She had her hair in a teased beehive, and her makeup preceded her in the room by 3 inches. She was afraid Leroy would find me attractive. Nervously, she told me, "Why, you look like one of those models in Mademoiselle magazine with their hair and wearing pants and love beads. You must be a real hippie." No, I looked like this before it became fashionable. Poverty's a great trendsetter these days. Yeah, my tomboy Molly, she looks real good now. I knew you'd turn out all right, Carrie boasted. My looks were still more important to Carrie than anything I would ever achieve. You'd look like a real lady if you'd get out of them jeans, she fussed. Oh, but that's the rage now, Joyce fumbled. Leroy added in his butchest voice, "Yeah, the women want to wear the pants nowadays, so I'd tell my wife to go on out and support me. I'll take care of the kids." Carrie laughed, and Leroy's wife snapped at his elbow. "Leroy, shut up." Carrie dragged Joyce, loaded with hairspray, back into her bedroom to look at a house dress she had sewn on her old white rose machine with the needle. Leroy turned to me. "We sure grew up, didn't we?" "It happens to the best of us." "And you're making movies. I never thought you'd make movies. I thought you was going to be a lawyer with that mouth of yours. You always were smarter than 40 crickets. I guess I'm dumb. After the Marine Corps, I came on back here and got a job working for a lawn care operation. I like being outside. Always did. I remember that. Yeah, I got 4 men working under me too. Coloreds. They're just like us. I mean, I wouldn't socialize with them, but the guys on the work gang, they're just like me. Got wives and kids and car payments. We get on fine. I learned that in the service. Had to learn there. It was good for me. Ep filled me with all kinds of crap, and the service kicked it out of me for sure. I went to Nam. Did you know that? No, I didn't even know you were in the service. Marines, not just the service. Yeah, I went over there and got a good look at the gooks. I started out as a diesel mechanic. Always was good with machines, you remember. I remember the time he took the Bonneville apart and lost her clutch cable. That was a beautiful bike. I'd like to get another one, but Joyce is scared to death of them. Still like tooling with machines. I went into diesels because I didn't want to get shot at. Got shot at anyway. God, I was glad to get back from there. Did you kill anyone? I don't know. I shot at anything that moved, but I never heard a yell, so maybe I didn't. I only got shot at a couple of times. It's not like I was out there in the rice paddies. You can't see anything anyway, but you sure can smell it when it's been dead for a couple days. Well, I'm glad you're back in one piece, Leroy. Yeah, me too. It's a shit-ass war. Hey, you got a boyfriend? Why the hell are you asking me that? No, I haven't got a boyfriend. But you've been with men. I mean, you've been with other men than me. His voice was low. Of course. Why? I don't know. I just wondered. You're still the only girl I can talk to. Except I'm a woman now, Leroy, with a capital W. He looked at me, puzzled. I can see that. You look good, Molly. Real good. Thanks. You ever go with girls? What the hell is this? 20 questions? Oh, well, I haven't seen you in so long. I just wondered. I know. I go out with girls every chance I get. How do you like them apples, Toots? He studied me, and then with a resigned sigh. It's just as well. You ain't the kind to settle down. You always said that, but I didn't listen to you. He hesitated, then leaned forward, lowering his voice to a whisper. It gets boring. I think some days I'm going to walk off the job and go down to Bahia Mar and get me a job as a crew member on a fat private yacht and sail around the world. Maybe someday I'll do that. If you do, make sure you leave your family enough to live on. At that instant, the happy brood reappeared. Your Aunt Carrie's got some new house dresses, Leroy. One's a pretty orange like the color I wanted for my new shoes. Leroy looked helpless. That's nice, honey. We have to get these wild Indians to bed. Come on, hon, and say goodbye to your cousin. Aunt Carrie, we'll see you next week. Let's all drive out and see the new condominiums they built up above Galt Ocean Mile. With a look of desperation, Leroy shook my hand. Then he cautiously put his left hand on my right shoulder and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. He didn't look into my eyes, but turned his head and said to Carrie, We won't see her for another 5 years, huh, Mom? Carrie bellowed, You'll see her before then if I croak. Aunt Carrie, don't say such things, Joyce gently urged. You take care, Molly, and let us hear from you every now and then. Sure, Leroy. Take care of your own self. He backed out the front door and got into a worn white station wagon, turned the ignition, switched on the lights, and honked the horn when he got out on the road. Don't he have a lovely family, and his wife is so sweet? I love that, Joyce. Yeah, they're nice. Real nice. The day that I was to leave to go home, Carrie acted like her old self. Somehow she pushed her wasting body through the kitchen like a whirlwind. She insisted on making me fried eggs and fresh brewed coffee. Carrie considered instant coffee a sign of moral degeneracy, and she was bound to make me fresh coffee even if it killed her. After all this activity, she sat down at the kitchen table, stammered, then began. You always asked me who your real father was. I never told you. You're such a nosy bastard, you'll find out after I'm dead, so I might as well tell you myself, so I know you'll get the story straight. Ruby had taken up with some foreigner, and worse, he was married. That's why it got all hushed up. What kind of foreigner was he? French, full-blooded French, and them's the rottenest set. They're even crazier than wops. We all nearly died when we found out she was running with him, and he couldn't hardly speak English. How they talked to each other is beyond me. Probably for what they were doing they didn't need no talking. Ruby had hot pants. Anyway, When he found out she was pregnant, he jilted her. Carl tracked him down and made him agree to never claim you, to stay out of your life and Ruby's. He was happy to agree to that. Did you ever see him? No, but they say he was a handsome devil. That's where you got sharp features and dark eyes. You don't look a whit like Ruby, except you got her voice, exactly. Whenever I hear you talk, if I close my eyes, I can see Ruby standing there. You ain't built like her, nothing like her except that voice. You must be your old man all over. And you talk with your hands, and French people do that. He was a big athlete, you know. Oh, yes, well known he was, in the Olympics or something. God knows where she met him. Ruby never went near a playing field in her life. I bet that's where you got all your coordination, from him. She was a clumsy ass. What was his name? One of those damn French names, two names strung together. I can't pronounce it. Something like Jean-Peter Boudet. Jean-Pierre? That's it. Why the hell these people got to name themselves twice? Because they like themselves so much, I suppose. The more names they got, the longer it takes you to get it out of your mouth. None of our families like that, dreamy like those French. That's where you get all your dreaminess in being an artist. We're practical people. We were always practical people, and we eat sensible food, too. Those frogs eat snails. Not only do they eat them, they charge you an arm and a leg for them. Never heard of anything so damn dumb in all my life. I'm glad you told me, Mom. I used to wonder about it a lot. I ain't done telling you. Don't try to cut me off. I've been holding this in since before you were born, and now that I'm near the grave, I'm getting it off my chest. She looked down at her wrinkled chest and hooted. I ain't got no chest to get it off of. You know, when I was young, I had pretty tits, just like a model for a brasserie ad. This darn disease dries everything up. Getting old is terrible. Just wait, you'll find out. Here I look down and see nothing but a sugar cake with a raisin on it, when I used to look down and see 2 full oranges. She put her hand under her breast and pushed it up. Hell, that don't even do no good. You want another cup of coffee, Mom? Believe I will. There's more milk in the refrigerator if you'll get it for me. Milk costs nearly much as whiskey. I might as well go out and spend the money on whiskey and pour that in my coffee. It'd make me feel better. We couldn't have children. That's a whole damn sorry story, and I'm going to tell you the whole thing so as you don't get it from the wrong person when I'm gone. Carl got syphilis the first time he had a piece of ass back in 1919. That I adjusted to when I found out. But then in 1937 I found out he was cheating on me. Yes, cheating. I didn't say a thing about it. Everybody knew but me. Cookie, Florence, Joe, they'd all seen him at the movies with her, but they never told me. One time, only time in her life that Florence kept her mouth shut. Could have wrung her neck for it. The wife is always the last to know. I'd never have guessed it. He didn't seem any different to me. Treated me like always, bought me little presents. You know how he was that way. He acted like he loved me. Then he went to a party at the Detweilers, and everyone was whispering. I thought they were all talking about me, so I said, What goes here? Are you all talking about me? Florence said, Somebody should tell her. Now I was worried for sure, and I said, Just what the hell is going on? Everybody clammed up, and Cookie hustled Florence into the kitchen. Carl and I went home. I knew something was up. The next day old Pop-Pop came down all the way from Hanover to tell me. The gang all decided he should be the one to do it. After all, he was my stepfather and the only relative I had left aside from Florence. Pop-Pop told me that my Carl was seeing a woman named Gladys, and she looked very tall and elegant. I couldn't believe it, not after what happened with my first husband. Your first husband? I didn't know you had any husband other than Carl. Oh, yes, I was married once before, right before I'd gone to high school in 1918. Rupp was his name, and he beat tar out of me, so I divorced him. And he ran with other women, too. It was a scandal that I divorced him. People thought that was worse than him running with women. Those days you didn't get divorced. That's when I started smoking, too. God damn, they think I'm trash for getting a divorce. I'll just smoke on the streets and really give them something to chew over. I smoked big cigars, too, so as nobody could miss it. She paused and picked up the thread of her original thought. When Carl came home that night, I knew I'd have to dope it out with him. I asked him what was this about him and Gladys. He told me the truth. Been seeing her for a year, he said, and he sat on that old sofa we had with the brown stripes, put his head in his hands and cried. Tears running down his face, and he says to me, Cat, can't you love more than one person at a time?
I love two people. What can I do? I lost my mind then. How could he love anyone but me? If he couldn't be satisfied with me, I was packing my bags and getting out. I loved that man. I worshipped him. He was so good to me. How could he turn around and do that? I almost landed in the nut house in Harrisburg and right after my cobalt treatments. I wasn't right in the head from that. I got on the bus once to go to downtown York and ended up in Spring Grove. I didn't know east from west. Well, I carried on high and cried so much they took me to Dr. Harmeling because they thought I was losing my sight. Then Doc had a conference with Carl and me. Doc told Carl he was crazy to be with another woman. One was enough, was his thought. Put a paper bag over their head and women are all the same. Why couldn't Carl be happy with the one he's got? I was right in the room when the doctor said that. At least Doc was on my side. I was a good wife. So Carl broke off with that woman and I forgave him. But he broke my heart. I could never forget it. To this day I can't believe he did that to me. Her voice trailed off into a whine. She wiped the tears from her eyes with a napkin and looked down at her coffee cup, waiting for me to sympathize with her. 31 years ago, and her life froze in that year. She enameled the sharp edge of misery into a pearl of passion. Her life revolved around that emotional peak since the day she discovered it, and now she was waiting for me to share it. I'm sorry, Mom, but, well, it doesn't make sense to me to stay with only one person either. Her head jerked up and she glared at me. Such talk. You're oversexed. That's what's wrong with you. I looked at her blankly. I wasn't going to encourage her in her ridiculous triumph that she was the most wronged woman in the hemisphere. She took a breath and continued with less conviction and emotion since I wasn't supporting her. Then in 44 you were born. I saw my chance. He couldn't give me no baby, so I went after you. I always wanted a baby to dress and care for. I thought you would make me happy. I sewed clothes for you, took you out in a carriage. You were a beautiful baby once we put some meat on your bare little bones. They weren't feeding you over in that Catholic orphanage. Nuns. Never liked them anyway. They looked like penguins to me. Carl was afraid he'd be an unfit father, but he said he'd try to do right. He grew to love you. Loved you as much as if you were his own. Of course, you didn't turn out like I expected, but you're still mine. All I got in this world. Carrie, sitting there over your coffee cup in a wasteland of worn-out silver wedding rings, feeding yourself confections of motherhood like the display cakes in the bakery where you worked, all trimming over cardboard. I fiddled with my cup and she went on. You were born to be my baby. That's what Pastor Needle said, and I raised you to be a lady. Did the best I could. I know, Mom. I'm grateful to you for taking care of me when I was tiny, feeding me, clothing me. You didn't have much to spare. I really am grateful. Don't thank me. That's what mothers are for. I wanted to do it. I glanced up at the clock. 10 minutes and my cab would be there. She watched me check the time and her eyes tightened. When are you coming back this way again? Can't say. It's hard for me to get the money up. Now see, it don't make sense for you to want women. No woman's gonna keep you. You go out there and marry some man and he'll keep you. You'll have money then. You'll be sorry. There's no security with a woman. Hell, you married a man and you didn't have money. And security? You're secure when you're dead. Such talk. I can't keep up with you. When's your cab coming? In about 10 minutes. Well, I said all I got to say. I packed you sandwiches and there's some Switzer cheese and wax paper. Buy yourself some milk and have a good lunch. There's 3 hard-boiled eggs too, so you don't have to buy any food. That's all your old mother can give you. Her eyes got wet again. I'd done the best I could. Honey, I'm so sorry I ain't rich. I'd buy you a movie house of your own if I was. I don't say nothing this week, but it hurts me to see you so drawn. You're too skinny, girl. You're up there working and working yourself. You always was a hard worker. I'm afraid you drive yourself too hard. Damn it to hell. I grow up with nothing and I want my kid to have something. You're starting out from scratch because I got nothing to give you. I did the best I could. Don't hate me, honey. Don't hate me. I put my arms around her and her white head hid underneath my breasts. Mom, I don't hate you. We're different people, strong-willed people. We don't always see eye to eye. That's why we fought so much. I don't hate you. And I never said that thing you said I said. I never said you weren't mine. You are mine. Oh, I got mixed up, that's all. Forget it. I love you. You're the only thing I keep living for. What else I got? The TV. I love you too. The taxi honked outside, and Carrie looked as though she'd seen the angel of death. She tried to carry my suitcase, but I told her not to do that. I ran out with the equipment and came back for my suitcase. She stretched her hands toward me. Give this old dried apricot a kiss. I gave her a hug and a kiss, and as I turned to go to the taxi, she coughed. You write me now. You write me, you hear? I turned and nodded that I would. I couldn't speak. The taxi pulled away, and Carrie was leaning against the faded pink wall, waving goodbye. I waved back. Carrie, whose politics are to the right of Genghis Khan, who believes that if the good Lord wanted us to live together, he'd have made us all one color, who believes a woman's only as good as the man she's with. And I love her. Even when I hated her, I loved her. Maybe all kids love their mothers, and she's the only mother I've ever known. Or maybe underneath her crab shell of prejudice and fear, there's a human being that's loving. I don't know, but either way, I love her. And that was chapter 17. Wow. What do you guys think about the change in Carrie? It seems like Molly's grown up a bit into an adult, and Carrie's just become this decrepit old woman who kind of, well, I feel like she kind of has to believe that she was never horrible to Molly in order to have some peace. What do you guys think of this chapter? I know it's been a long time coming, but I think this was a good one. It was a long one. The next chapter is the last chapter, and it's actually quite a short one, so not much else can happen. I wonder how the story's going to wrap up. What do you hope's going to happen for Molly? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for being so patient. I know, it's been a while. Kind of ridiculously while, but you have me here. You have me on Kyle's channel, which is KYL3K91 for Reflected in You. So you could check me out there. I'll put a link to that in the description. Thanks for listening, guys, and I look forward to reading even more with you. Bye.